Steve from Track Record.
And me.
And
Tasha.
And Mrs. Steve and the dog. So we're off on a road trip. Not a very long one, just up to 7 canyons in Sedona. The car's fully loaded with Mrs. Me, golf clubs, dog crate, clothes, food, because we're not actually going to go out anywhere. We are coming up on 6 months of ownership of this car. We have just over 6,000 miles in that time. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a what we like and what we dislike. And we were just sitting here trying to think what we disliked about the car, and we couldn't actually come up with anything very much. And now Julie's not saying anything because I told her not to be silly on the camera, because she was being silly on the camera. But we are about to stop off at Starbucks to get her free drink because it's her birthday today. I've gone all out. I'm taking her to Starbucks for her free drink. I'm very generous.
You drive?
I have never driven through. I've been a passenger in a drive-through. Actually, one thing I do find difficult on this car is finding the front of it.
Yes.
I can't see. I'm
still
always further away from stuff.
I'm
Positives about this car are it's a really good car. I actually have found very few things I don't like about it. I would say in particular, well, one, I like the range, and the range is consistently more than the quoted range. The quoted range for this car is 258 miles, and I think we've driven enough to get a good handle on what the true range is in everyday driving, and we are consistently getting over 300 miles per charge, which means we just need to charge it once a week, more or less. And I've just switched to only charging it to 80% as well, because that's better for the battery. So what do I like? I love the active cruise control on this car. It is so good and so intuitive. You can just switch it on and forget about it, and the car will automatically adjust to whatever is around it. And if you put the active lane keep on, that works, let's say 75% of the time, so it's pretty good. But the adaptive cruise control is great. It'll even bring the car to a stop if you're in stop-start traffic, and then just a touch on the accelerator pedal will bring it back up to whatever the speed the car in front of you is doing, or the speed that you've set. So top marks on the cruise control. I also like the heads-up display. Julie does not like the heads-up display. It's unobtrusive. The text sits more or less on the bonnet, so it's not in the way, and I think it's something that's just getting used to. I think the torque in this car, even in the eco setting, which is what we keep it on pretty much all of the time, off the line it's reasonable. I mean, this isn't a sports car, and it's not trying to compete with the Teslas of this world and do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds or whatever they do it in. I mean, this is quite a stately 0 to 60 time, but the passing acceleration is phenomenal, I would say. I mean, it's so good in traffic that if you need to get past somebody, you just do that. And you heard that little beeping there. That was because I didn't put my indicators on, because I live in Arizona and it's not required in Arizona. But that was just the lane keep telling me that I was going over the line. So you see, that was working. The HVAC system is middling, I would say. It doesn't have dual zone, which I think is a waste of time in most cars anyway, because can you really get 2 different temperatures on either side of the car? Range is very, very sensitive to the fan setting. So if you have the fan just on tick over, it's fine. As soon as you ramp up the fan, you can see your range go way down. And also the fan is very noisy. Have you noticed that, dear? You haven't noticed how noisy the fan is?
No.
You don't find that noisy?
Because you put it to the maximum. I never do. I always keep it on 2 or 3.
It's my fault. No, but when you have it on auto, it puts it on the maximum setting.
But then you just adjust it down.
Okay, so that's something that's wrong with me, not wrong with the car. What we have, because now it's a little cooler here, we have found that if you use the heat setting, that really has a huge impact on the range, way more so than the air conditioning. I assume it's a heat pump in both cases. But I was really surprised when we started to use the heat that it has such a big impact. Even though this car is mine in name and registration, it's actually Julie's car. She's the one that drives it on a daily basis. So why don't we get her views on what it's been like owning and driving this car for the last 6 months?
Absolutely love the cooling seats in the summer here in Arizona. It feels absolutely wonderful. Didn't you say that when Max was here and sitting in the back seat that it was a bit tight for him in the back?
Well, he said it was comfortable, but I think if he'd been in there for any length of time, it would have been very tiresome, because you could see that his knees, Max is 6'4", so you could see his knees were way up, like around his ears, and there was no support for the backs of his legs, and when I looked at it, he was a little cramped. So yes, the rear is cramped and the floor is very high. Anyway, enough about me, back to you.
Right, when using the GPS, sometimes it'll do its beep beep to alert you that you need to turn after you should have turned. So the timing of that is a bit off.
It's a bit laggy.
Yes, it's a bit laggy. What's good when you have your phone plugged in and you're using not necessarily the GPS, but when you've got your phone plugged in and you get a message in or some sort of notification, it'll turn the volume, it'll adjust the volume of the radio or whatever else is going on in the main system down, so you can just hear the beep beep or whatever coming from your phone, which is interesting.
And it will read your text messages to you.
Yes.
It's not as good as the mini system though.
6 months into it, I'm still trying to get used to when I park in a shopping center or wherever parking space. I've still got over 5 feet of space in front of me.
5 feet?
Seriously. I keep moving forward. If I can see where I am in another car's reflection, I can move forward. But if there's nobody next to me, I'm still having difficulty going farther forward.
Yeah, I find when I put this car into the garage, and because we park cars nose to tail, and I park cars nose to tail in the garage, you can't see the front of this car. It falls off, and I'm taller than Julie is, so I actually get to see more of the front of the car, but I cannot tell how far away I am from anything. So but I don't drive the car that much, so I'm looking now and I really can't. There's no marker at the front of the car.
No.
Maybe we need to put like a flag. Mickey Mouse. Put a flag on the front. Although this car is really quiet, it's not as quiet as it could be because of the tyres that are on it. They have these low rolling resistance tyres which produce a lot of road noise, particularly on uneven surfaces. So I mean, that will be something to deal with when we replace the tyres. But there's a compromise between low rolling resistance, which means higher range, and less noise, grippier tyres, which will mean lower range. Our entire expense in 6 months has been 0. We had one flat tyre, which they repaired for nothing.
Yeah.
We've been to the dealership once, because we got an email from Hyundai saying, whatever you do, don't park your car indoors because it's going to burst into flames, because there has been an issue in Canada and South Korea of cars combusting spontaneously. So we had to take it into the dealership. They did a software update, and part of that software update was checking the battery status, and they said it was fine. The dealership experience was fantastic. It was a really nice dealership. I thought it was on the par with BMW or Audi in terms of how clean, how nice, how friendly they were. They turned it around very quickly. They offered to wash the car, which is the main reason we took it.
Outside.
They didn't clean the inside? They did not clean the inside. Did Audi always clean the inside?
No, never.
Audi never cleaned the inside either, so... But it was... For me, it was a very pleasant experience going to the dealership, given the experience I'd had at Imperial Valley, California, had been so awful. Yes. It was the worst car buying experience I'd ever had. First of all, the dealership looked like it was a shed, and they were unprepared, unprofessional. We're still finding pieces of plastic in this car.
Yeah.
Like Max sitting in the back the other day said, oh, there's plastic here, and pulled it off. And so they didn't prep the car at all. They didn't put any windshield washer fluid into the car, which Hyundai North Scottsdale, Earnhardt Hyundai, what are they called?
I think so.
Earnhardt Hyundai North Scottsdale, whatever. They filled it up for us.
Oh, they did?
Yep. Without asking.
How did they know?
Because they checked it.
No.
Which Imperial Valley didn't bother doing, even though it was a brand new car. Things that after 6 months, admittedly, we are living through a global pandemic and we haven't been out that much. But for 90% of our normal driving anyway, I don't think there's been a huge change, just been less of it. But we have relied, apart from a couple of occasions, on home charging. We stayed overnight at L'Auberge in Sedona, which we would highly recommend, and the valet took the car in the evening. He asked if we would like to have it charged. We said yes, and it came back in the morning fully charged, which was great, and it was free. And as Julie said, she's used it one time at the grocery store for about 20 minutes just to top it up, and that was also free, wasn't it? I used the Electrify America network twice on my drive back from California. I probably only needed to do it once, but I wanted to top the car up because I really wasn't sure how it was going to deal with range. And that was a very easy experience, very convenient. Electrify America have sorted out the issue with the Kona and the Kia Niro, which meant that they were charging out at the highest cost, and they are now charging on a per kilowatt hour basis rather than time and potential capacity. See, that sunroof open, I don't think that's too bad. A lot of people complained that you get this drubbing noise, which I used to get in my A4. I mean, that's noisy. It's partly it's noisy because the car's so quiet the rest of the time. What did you think about that?
So I just reminded Steve of something else he had commented on a while ago about night driving.
Yeah, it's a very poor resolution on the backup cameras, and you notice that particularly at night. Is that important? Not really. You're not doing it for photographic purposes, but it's very, very noticeable in low light. But that is a minor quibble. I continue to be impressed by the stereo, and now in particular because I fully understand all the commands on the touch screen. I think it's a great system, and I haven't really been aware of lots of fingerprints on the screen. I mean, there probably are a lot of fingerprints on the screen, but they don't show up as much as they did, for example, on the Taycan. I mean, that was on the lower screen, that was really bad. Same on the McLaren 720S. So you think I'm comparing this to cars that are worth a little bit more.
Yes. That's the car doing that?
That is a perfect example of how good this adaptive cruise control is.
But didn't you say last time we came here you tried that and it didn't do something?
No, it was because it wasn't staying within the lanes all the time. So we were doing, what were we doing? 75 miles an hour, which is the speed limit here. And there was a line of stopped, or more or less stopped cars in front of us. My darling wife said, "Slow down." And then the car miraculously slowed down all by itself. I didn't have to do anything. You have to trust it.
Yeah, well, I can't do that.
Look at it around here. Everything's burned.
Yeah.
There's been fires here. It's not fun. So let's stop there for the moment, and there'll be more commentary in part 2 of this video. But I thought it was worthwhile just to recap what we liked and what could be improved on in the car. First of all, the range, which exceeds the official figure consistently. So we're very happy about that. I think the standout feature is the adaptive cruise control, a very good infotainment system, and the passing acceleration, and I assume this is the case with all electric cars, is very, very good. Running costs are very low. We charge the car on a cheap overnight rate. Haven't assessed exactly what that cost is, but we really haven't seen any increase on our electricity bills. The level of equipment in this car is phenomenal, and I think Hyundai really are known for that. One thing I didn't mention in the video is how good the turning circle of this thing is. It's better than a London taxi, and that's primarily because there's no engine to get in the way of the wheels. The automatic headlight system is very good. Not only does it turn into the corner when you turn, but it will dim the headlights automatically when you're either following a car or a car is coming in the opposite direction. And this system is very, very good. One of the best things about this car at the moment is the $7,500 federal tax credit in the US. Not sure how much longer that's going to be available, but without that, this would be an expensive car. So that really did factor into our decision. Last but not least, the regenerative braking system is excellent. And you do have one pedal driving as long as you're prepared to use the paddles on the steering wheel. So what could be improved? Well, as we said in the video, we can't see the front of the car. So it is very difficult when you're parking it to know how close you are to anything, and we're still, after 6 months, consistently further away from things than we think we are. The interior materials let this car down. The plastics are very cheap, they scratch easily, and that is really where we've seen the difference between this car and the cars we've had in the past, which admittedly are luxury type cars, BMW and Audi. And that leads me to the QPR, the quality price ratio. This is an expensive car for what you're getting. I mean, if you were to buy it without the electric drivetrain, you would be paying significantly less. And it shows. It does not look like a $50,000 car inside, and that's because basically it's not. There's no heat pump in the US. It's available in other markets, so why don't we get it? The rear is cramped, and because of the battery, the floor is quite high, which means somebody with long legs in the back is going to be rubbing their ears with their knees. The tire noise is noticeable, mostly because there's very other little noise in the car, and these are low rolling resistance tires. The backup camera isn't very good. It does the job, but could be better quality. The next point I do talk about in the next video is the potential resale value. So I won't go into the details here, but I think that is going to be an issue. Even though the documentation says you can connect the car by Wi-Fi, you can't. And the Blue Link system, which I will go to in the next video, is dreadful. And finally, the rear vents. They are virtually non-existent. There are small vents under the seats, and that's it. There is no control in the rear and very little ventilation, and definitely no ventilation at all in the trunk area should you happen to pop your dog in there. Whenever we have the dog in the back, we actually have the seats down to give a room. Anyway, that's that. Back to me. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us your comments below. And we'll see you next time. Cheers. Are you going to say cheers?